You're at Edge Match. Edge Match. Don't miss Edge Match. Don't miss Edge Match. You're at Edge Match. Edge Match. Don't miss Edge Match. Don't miss.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to our special edition of EduMatch. We are here today with a very special guest and a friend of EduMatch. Right before we jump into our interview today, just wanted to remind you to like, subscribe, join our community, share with a friend, check us out at edumatch.org. So all that being said, all of that out of the way, I am thrilled to welcome to our show today Thomas Thompson, who is the co-founder and CEO of EduAide.AI. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm well. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you. Thank you again for having participated in our EduMatch AI Summit this past October. It was so cool to hear your take about artificial intelligence, and I'm super excited to dive back into that tonight.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So for anyone who doesn't know you, could you please introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to focus on AI in education?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Thompson, and in addition to being the co-founder and CEO of EduAide.AI, I'm also an active classroom teacher. And I suppose that's as good a place as any way to start in talking about our origin, because we came to AI in a roundabout way. Education was always the primary concern. I suppose I should say learning was always the primary concern. And really, I suppose it was conversations between my co-founder Thomas Hummel and I in our classrooms during peak COVID, in which we were doing a lot of synchronous online lessons. We also had a lot of kind of downtime between those. And we had a number of conversations. We were on Clubhouse quite a bit. I don't know if you remember that. It was a hot thing for
Oh,
about
yeah.
6 months. And it was interesting because we listened to a lot of great conversations and not so great conversations, some grandstanding about education and the troubles facing it and the challenges and what could be done about it. And I was really interested in the communities aspect and how those kind of informal communities allowed teachers to engage in some form of professional development. It became some sort of community of practice in which you're discussing methods and techniques and challenges that you're facing. And I carried that into my graduate school work, where I studied open educational resources as a way to connect teachers with a community of practice and developing and revising and remixing high quality instructional materials and what that would look like. And it was Thomas who said, well, maybe generative AI, Thomas Hummel, by the way, it's confusing. We're both Thomases. And
Thomas is Thomas.
he said perhaps generative AI would fill the role that you're looking for with the open educational resources. Instead of that, you could, again, substitute large language model generated content. And that was really the starting point. And I was very interested in the copyright implications of this and how teachers might use that technology to, again, build high quality instructional materials.
Wow, that is so cool that you all were on Clubhouse quite a bit, because I mean, I know that our community was there as well, but just how you all connected like over the course of the pandemic, where so many people were shut in and trying to find challenges to these solutions to these challenges, I should say. So that is fantastic. So if you could please tell us a little more about EduAide.AI and how do you all use AI to help teachers and students. And I also want to encourage our audience, if you have questions for Thomas, please feel free to drop them in the comments and we'll bring them up here on screen.
Yeah. So EduAide AI at its base is just really a workspace where teachers can access kind of an integrated set of materials to plan instruction. That could be lesson planning to delivering feedback to making any kind of the materials that you may need to, engage and proceed with instruction. What that may look like is connecting teachers with different large language models, kind of set on different tasks according to their unique affordances. But that's also just building a user interface around generative AI such that it constrains it within the educational parameters that we seek and constrains the prompt structures, the resource generation, and there's a number of strategies you may use beyond prompt engineering to better constrain the generative AI within instructional best practices. And that's really what you get when you use EduAide. You get an integrated workspace that has most of the tools you need to plan a lesson, and you know that the AIs are the artificial intelligence is constrained within a certain set of instructional best practices.
I'm so slow to unmute, but yeah, that's fascinating. I went in and I'm with the school district 9 to 5, and we've talked about this before, that both of us kind of live a dual life in that sense. But my district was exploring EduAide and seeing exactly how we would be able to potentially use it. And I was just like, this is just so amazing, just all of the different features and functionality that you have there. Could you tell us a little bit more about like some of the things that you see a lot of users using, like what might be some of your more popular features?
Yeah, the clear runaway winner in that regard is the lesson seed, because I think it strikes a nice balance between what I was just talking about with the best practices and the broadness and creative power that collaborating with generative AI can unlock for you. And that is, you know, you type in a topic or keyword, you just have a broad idea of what you might want to do. We have this handy little enhance button. You click that, and it'll turn those few topic keyword statements into an actionable learning objective, and then it will align the generation to that learning objective by injecting it in a broader context that we set based on, again, our knowledge base that we've pulled from various research articles and studies. And the lesson seed, for example, will always include its objectives, of course, but then it'll have explicit prior knowledge statements of students would need to have mastered this content before they can access the to be learned material. And then it gives you cue sets, 3 of them, to activate that prior knowledge and connect it with the new material to be learned. And then it moves into direct instruction strategies, which are far from the antiquated lecture, but include opportunities for the teacher to, again, directly instruct students into the to be learned material, but also provide opportunities with check in questions and elaborated instructional analogies and things like this. And then moving into practice, deliberate practice for the students, and taking them from there, finally, when they are ready, into cooperative learning, when they have the requisite prior knowledge to be able to access that. And then, of course, there's deep questions, which are always included in our lesson seed. So you get all of that in one resource type. And there's 3 of each of those different tools that I mentioned. So you can kind of pick and choose and revise and remix this thing into being exactly what you need it to be. And then we have further suites of differentiation tools where you can, again, personalize that instruction even more. And then Jeopardy, people love the gamification. It seems it's nice for review. We're looking to do some more bespoke things with gaming in education, around perhaps role playing for history classes and assigned readings around that. So there's some interesting things that we're developing on that front. But gamification tools, formative assessments, and lesson planning documents seem to be the large areas where we see a lot of use.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you had me at gamification, like, for real. Yeah, that was, like, probably the first thing I went to when I
Mhm.
went into your platform, so that is fantastic and so helpful, so useful, for educators everywhere. So speaking of education, just kinda taking a broader look, so as we know, education has changed tremendously over the
Mhm.
years, and lately with, generative AI, how that has really exploded, over the past year and a
Mhm.
half. So how do you think that AI is changing the way that we teach and learn, and what role do you all play in this
Mhm.
with EduAide.AI?
That's a really interesting question. Um, I suppose I'm not sure I could say, because it's an empirical question, which would mean that we would need, I think, some better research data on how this actually affects teaching and learning. And there's too many confounding factors currently for us to get a good read on that, I think. But what I will say is, if generative AI enables the broader distribution of high quality instructional materials, and now there'll be a lot of debate over what high quality means, uh, then yes, I think it's having some sort of positive effect. If it's democratizing access to learning materials, especially in places that can't afford, say, those costly textbook subscriptions or access to different tools with high paywalls, then yes, generative AI will have a positive effect in that it democratizes information, which I think is only a benefit for education. Now, the information that it democratizes, we should ask questions about the quality of it and hallucinations and biases. And is there a general understanding of what these technologies actually do? And are we misusing them in different ways? Because misuse can be very obvious, of course, like using AI to make, I don't know, biological weapons, right? Clear misuse. But there's other misuse that I think is a little more subtle and unintentional. And that might be in perpetuating certain biases or misunderstandings in student learning, and not properly constraining and aligning these technologies with the educational goals in mind, such that maybe you teach a student a hallucinated piece of content, in which case you're building misconceptions that will be damaging to that student. So there are some clear hurdles that I think must be crossed. And we can talk a little bit more about what alignment would even mean in that regard. But we should be careful, but we should be optimistic and ready to experiment and explore, because there's a lot of interesting things it can unlock. Content generation is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of letting this one roll. Content generation is definitely the tip of the iceberg. There'll be more interesting things around maybe looking at anonymized data sets and finding trends, and being able to give administrators really good tools to be able to diagnose the issues that they're facing at the higher level, and then being able to develop policy around the to address it.
Yeah, I love how you gave that balanced perspective of generative AI about like the positives as
Mhm,
well as potential challenges. I was just on a podcast myself on, well, actually, live with Teach Better this weekend, and we were talking about generative AI and AI in general. And there was a great article in the MIT Tech Review,
mhm,
and I'll find the author's name. I had it like in the corner of my screen on Saturday. But the author was talking about how how we need to really make sure that AI is not perpetuating stereotypes,
mhm,
the how we need to mitigate the bias that's already in place, when it's being trained on biased data from biased human beings,
mhm.
like
Yeah.
as we all have our own implicit biases and things of that nature, and a lot of times it's trained on that data. So I
Mhm,
really do appreciate you bringing that balanced perspective, because simultaneously AI is full of promise, as we're
mhm.
seeing, and it's really making things a lot easier for people, and allowing people to take things a lot further than they may have ordinarily done. So
Yeah, certainly.
yeah, absolutely. So kind of in a similar vein, our next question would like to get your thoughts on the future, like your speculation. What do you think is coming next? Like what is down the pike, maybe in the short term, mid range, long range, however you want to approach this question. What do
Yeah.
you think that it'll look like in the future?
Well, that again, another tough question, because making predictions has a way of making one look foolish in the future. But I could say I believe I come back to the issue of alignment. I think this will be huge. It's something that gets thrown around a lot, and I think that term may be misused. When I'm talking about alignment, I don't necessarily mean alignment with broad ethical or moral principles, and that's another conversation for another time. What I'm thinking of is a very kind of focused alignment to ensuring that the AI on almost a transactional level is able to reflect the wishes of the user who is operating it at that time. Again, constrained within, I think, broader, maybe constitutional principles, right? Not no harm done, and perpetuation of racism and bias and things like this should be no goes. And we're taking measures on our end to ensure that, with our content moderation endpoints and limiting requests to different types of content that may, again, violate those kind of standards. But alignment will be huge in that we want to make sure that the AI or agents that we employ to do certain tasks will do those tasks to a level of rigor that we set for it, right? We don't want a an AI to be employed in a, I don't know, a undergraduate level course when it provides subpar level content that does not, reach that undergraduate rigor. So large part of that will be, hmm, a large part of that will come kind of from the big players and how we go about doing that. But there's also going to be concerns around student facing AI and what that would look like. And I know there are some companies in the space that are exploring that. And I think that's really interesting, and we'll see what it does. Again, I think the caution that we have in using AI for ourselves is doubly so when we put it in front of a student. Um, I think the anonymized data and using AIs to be able to kind of query that and learn about trends in our own school that may not be apparent to us, that'll be huge. And then, of course, the AI for instructional design and ways in which those three lanes kind of interact with one another will be really interesting to see, as well how we go about kind of checking AI within education. What are those checks and balances between the individual intelligence of the teacher, the artificial intelligence, the collective intelligence of teachers working together, and then the institutional intelligence of administrators and how they go about employing policy to, again, affect AI.
Totally. That is a fascinating take. So I really appreciate you going down that rabbit hole with me. I know like that it's speculative, but I think what you said was like really really on point. Those are trends that we need to think
Mhm.
about. Not trends. Trends is not the word I'm looking for, but those are avenues that we really need to be mindful of and cognizant. So that I really appreciate all of your perspective that you're sharing with our audience today. And I'm seeing that we have quite a few folks tuning in. So, hello to everyone who's watching live and to everyone who will be watching later and listening on our podcast. So, with that being said, we'd love to share with our listeners how they can connect with you and
Mhm.
find out more about you and about EduAide. So, would you mind sharing that info, please?
Yes, of course. I should preface though, I mean, everything I've said up to this point, just understand that's kind of like my high level take on it from what my team brings to me and everyone that I work with and the research that I'm able to read. It goes far deeper and I've oversimplified to the point where some people may even say it's incorrect. So I should definitely preface that as well. I mean, it's a complex topic and there's a lot of ins and outs. And I want to make sure that the teachers listening know that the best way to find out more about this is to take that kind of leap and dive and spend a little time doing the readings and watching some of the videos. But EduAide.AI could help you with that. We're launching our training courses soon. That's coming out around March 22nd is our tentative timeline, and you'll be able to learn more about what generative AI is and then more about how to use EduAide in that context. So it's providing teachers with the context they need to understand the technology and then how EduAide fits in. And you can access both of those training courses on EduAide.AI, which is our website, our blog, everything is there. That's kind of all we have. We don't really go out too much into the social media sphere. There's a lot of noise out there, and I'm sure teachers get to the point where they're almost sick of hearing about AI. So we just try to make the best tool we can, and it's there should you want to use it.
Yeah, well, that is fantastic and definitely an authentic method of delivery. So absolutely. And we really want to thank you so much for taking the time out and for being here with us today, Thomas. It was really fascinating to chat with you and you are a wealth of information. So thank you so much.
Thanks again for having me and representing EduAid on here. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. We would really love if you like, subscribe, join our community. So if you're already on Facebook, then you can just find our group, facebook.com/groups/EduMatchFam. You can also find us at edumatch.org. So if you are watching the video version, then you probably see a ticker scrolling at the bottom of your screen. But if you want to tune in and join us for our live launch of Dr. Will's The Edupreneur on March 19th at 7 p.m. Then it'll be right here going through our Facebook group, our X or Twitter, and our YouTube channel. So we hope to see you then. So thank you so much, everyone. And I hope that you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are listening to this. So thank you all so much. All right. Bye-bye.